Madam Chair, you can begin.
Thank you very much, Randy. Well, welcome everybody. Welcome to those of you who are in Harrisburg and to those of you who are on Zoom. For board members who are on Zoom, please unmute your lines now because we'll be doing roll call in just a second or so. And welcome everybody to those watching the live web stream. So with that, let's get going and let me ask Sharissa to please do a roll call.
Good morning. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Governor Bogle. Representative Briggs.
Here.
Governor Gindelsberger.
Present.
Secretary Jones.
Here.
Senator Martin.
Here.
Governor Mazur.
Present.
Governor Moskowitz.
Present.
Secretary Garcia.
Here.
Representative Roy.
Here.
Governor Roberts.
Here.
Senator Schwank.
Here.
Governor Scott.
Here.
Chair Shapiro.
Here.
Governor Skinner.
Here.
Governor Smith.
Here.
Governor Walder. Here. Governor Weaver.
Here.
Governor Yeomans.
Here.
Back to liaison, Dr. Phillips.
Here. And Governor Bogle is on too.
All right. Oh, great. Thank you. We have a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Well, good morning again. And I want to know that this is our first regular meeting as a board since we completed the sale of the Dixon Center. Are we all good? Randy, are we all good?
You're good to go. Mhm.
Okay, great. I was just commenting that this is our first board meeting since we completed the sale of the Dixon Center. And of course, that was a magnificent campus facility that served the system well for nearly 4 decades. We all really cherish its place historically as a place of learning and collaboration. It was a venue for our system and our board to come together. But as we evolve as a system, it means that our system office, our actual physical space, needs to evolve as well. So now, in sort of keeping with what's going on in society, Dan and his staff are primarily in a remote work operation. This saves us millions of dollars a year since we no longer have to maintain the Dixon Center any longer. And we have used these funds to plow back into the system. We'll be using them to plow them back into the system to increase its efficiency and make it even more sustainable. So anyway, because our current and now smaller system office doesn't have space suitable for our board meetings, we are working with various partners here in Harrisburg to use their meeting space. And of course, at least one of our quarterly meetings a year is on a campus. But it's a great way to build even stronger ties with partners in Harrisburg and to save the state system more money. And so today we are very grateful to FIA for letting us use their absolutely beautiful boardroom. I'm so sorry I'm not there with you physically, but it just looks incredible. And so let me thank Jim Steele and his team for treating us so well. Thanks again, Jim. All right, so today it's an important meeting, as all of them are, but at this one we'll discuss a number of critical issues that will help shape the success of our system redesign. First of all, we're really delighted to celebrate student success by bestowing the Alizady Award on a very deserving state system student. And we'll hear from Dan next regarding some great progress being made with the integrations and related efforts. We're going to appoint 4 new trustees, all of whom are 4 new student trustees, all of whom are incredibly smart, talented women, which is terrific. And we will set tuition for next year a task which, of course, is one of the most serious that the board conducts every year. It's an important meeting also because we're entering the height of advocacy season as the Commonwealth seeks to finalize next year's budget. As we all know, we're asking for a historic investment in our universities and in our students. And we feel very comfortable in making this request because we have been doing our part to earn the trust of the Commonwealth, and they know that we are an excellent investment at this point. We have gotten our house in order through hard work and strategic choices, from financial sustainability to 3 years of tuition freezes to university integrations. All of this work, we believe, is really paying off. It's providing a solid foundation for student success, which from our perspective means helping the students get in, get a great education, and get out on a timely basis to start a great career for the Commonwealth. The success of our students is what this board has been focused on for the past 5 years. It has driven our system redesign, and it's truly what fuels everyone, all of our stakeholders, our university presidents, our faculty, and our staff. It's the reason that we exist. And I think it's never too often that we are reminded of this fact. So I think with that, I will conclude my remarks for now, and let's have an opportunity for public comment. Randy, can you facilitate that?
Thank you, Madam Chair. If there are any members of the public who are on the phone line who would like to offer comment, please push *9 to raise your hand on the phone. Likewise, if there are any members of the public here in the boardroom who'd like to offer comment, please approach the podium. For those of you who may be offering comment, we'd ask you to limit your remarks to no more than 3 minutes so that we can stay on time with board business today, and to allow for others who may be speaking to also speak. I'll go to the Zoom line. There's nobody in the room right now, but let me go to the Zoom line. We have 2 on the Zoom line to speak. We'll start with the caller from area code 610, and let me click allow talk, and then you'll just need to unmute your line. State your name for the record, and you're welcome to your remarks.
Hi, yes, this is Nick Marcel. I am a current graduate student at Westchester University and also graduated from undergrad there. I'm calling in to leave some comments, as I know that the board is going to be making recommendations for tuition and fees. So this is sort of in that context. I'd like to begin by stating that Chairwoman Shapira is correct. This is a historic investment. I would say a historically low investment by the board. That being because if you actually look historically in terms of the general fund appropriations for PASHE over its existence, the last time, yes, that we did have, let's say in the ballpark of 550 million, or more like actually 600, was right before like the recession in about like 2008, 2009, or even 2009, 2010, when we had about $600 million adjusted for today's inflation. So that's why I would say this is actually a historically low investment. I think it's great to increase the funding, but I think it'd be even better to actually make it even higher than that. As you know, historically back in 1983 and 84, we had about like almost $8,000 per student adjusted for today's inflation, compared to this current year, where we have about $5,386 per student for the general fund appropriation. The board needs to do better in the advocacy and in where they actually advocate and in what kind of amount that they actually advocate for, because in my opinion, and many other students, faculty, and staff's opinion, this is not enough. And the fact that you might increase tuition and fees, I think would be horrific. I think many other students, faculty, and staff think so also. And I think instead of actually trying to increase fees or even freeze fees again and tuition, which would be a plus, sure, I think that the board needs to ultimately decrease and ultimately eliminate tuition and fees at public state-owned universities. If you don't know, just recently in the news, New Mexico just made their community colleges and public four-year colleges tuition free. I think that Pennsylvania could do the same and being a trailblazer for the country to actually have something like this in the Commonwealth. The state system and the board needs to do better. And that starts with actually advocating for a larger increase in the general fund appropriations from last year to this year. Maybe in the ballpark of 700 million, 800 million. I think that that's fair enough. We've had high watermark years of $700 million adjusted for today's inflation. A lot of the years between 1983, when the system was founded, and about 2008, we had over $700 million a year adjusted for inflation. In fact, that's about 2/3 of all of those years. The state system needs to do better. And I will end by saying, in my opinion, we are continuing to underfund these schools, which is ultimately harming students across the state, preventing so many from even trying to attend Apache University. I myself graduated from undergrad with like $15,000, $16,000 in debt, which is a lot lower than the average of around $39,000, if I'm not mistaken. And that debt holds people back from going back to their own home communities, maybe where they most want to work and serve, and really holds people back from so many life choices. And if the board actually cares about those students, then they would advocate for a fully funded state system of free public higher education. I just hope that that happens. And if it doesn't, you know that you'll continue to hear my voice and you'll continue to hear other voices, because that is where social progress needs to be made. Thank you very much. My name is Nick Marcel. I'm a current graduate student at Westchester University, about to graduate with $17,000 in student debt, which shouldn't exist, from a public state-owned university. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next hand in the Zoom room is area code 440. Give that caller a moment to come off of mute. Again, 3 minutes, please. Thank you. And state your name for the record, please.
My name is Michael Ballard Jr. I'm a Edinburgh graduate from 2018. I'm calling because I heard that, or I'm leaving a comment because I heard that the Edinburgh is apparently planning on filling off 2 of our dormitories. And looking over the remarks in the meeting minutes, they don't really discuss in their, I don't know if it's a proposal or how you refer to it in the minutes, but they didn't really mention what kind of an actual savings this is going to be. And it feels like this is one of those, this is going to be a great short-sighted move if enrollment actually does go up, like all of the universities have been trying to do, and Apache has stated as a goal is to improve enrollment. And I know that they've also, if memory serves, have also been closing some of the older dorms like Rose and Earp. So this seems like a, what is your long-term plan here? And it's going to be great if in 5 years they're like, oh no, we have no bets. It seems like a very short-sighted long-term plan. And I want to also the student who's graduated and is also sitting on, I think now it's somewhere in the 20,000 range because I've been able to thankfully throw money at my student loan debt. Raising tuition is not helpful and would be a bad idea, and that we probably as an institution actually should move to try and decrease tuition and fees. I knew people back in 13, 14 when I first enrolled who did end up dropping out because they did the math and were like, this doesn't make sense. I'm going to walk out of here with all this student loan debt, and they're studying to be majors that don't get massive salaries because it's just not a well-paying career path. But it's a career path that at times needs college education despite the lack of pay. And that we're probably as a society going to pay for this dearly in our, 10, 20 years when, oh, why don't we have anybody who's trained in like arts? Oh, right, because we drove them out of any kind of a learning institution because we've made the tuition so high, but they don't, they don't make pay that's anywhere near enough to cover that. Yeah, the state system should be moving to try and decrease tuition and fees to try and make the system more accessible. Also, as a side note, I was looking over your proposal in the minutes. There's no mention of out-of-state tuition in your table. You might want to look into that. That's all I have to say today.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There are no other hands.
All right. Thank you very, very much for the public comments. We appreciate it. Let me now call on Dr. Jamie Martin to offer remarks on behalf of Abscuff.
Thank you. Chairman Shapiro, Chancellor Greenstein, governors, university presidents, and guests. Good morning. Last week, elected delegates from the 14 state-owned and state-funded universities met in Harrisburg for our 211th Legislative Assembly. This was our first face-to-face meeting since I became president in 2020, and it was good to see all of my colleagues in 3 dimensions. I want to speak today about what I learned at that meeting. While everyone shared excitement at seeing friends and colleagues, a pall hung over the assembly room. Over the lunch break, I met with the chapter presidents and asked the 14 to identify some good news from their campuses that I could bring here today. Here's some of what I heard. Jamie, if I tried to find some good news, I would weep. Another said, I have to pass on that. And another one said, I've got nothing. If I had one word to describe the faculty, it would be exhausted. However, being a professor, I cannot use only one descriptor. On several campuses, morale is at an all-time low. Faculty are overworked. On most campuses, and more problematic, I'm seeing faculty begin to disengage. I need to talk about why this is happening and the impacts of all of it on the faculty and, more importantly, on our students. To do this, I'll focus on 4 R's: retirements, retrenchment, recruitment, and retention. We all know what the past 2 years have been like globally and more locally on our campuses, and I do not need to rehash that here. Due in part to the challenges in the last 2 years and in part because of retirement incentives, nearly 10% of the faculty system-wide have retired or will retire by the conclusion of this academic year. This has resulted in the loss of seasoned faculty members who have a breadth of experience and institutional memory that is hard to replace. In many cases, new faculty lines are not authorized to replace these retirees, nor are adjunct faculty being hired, and I must explain why. One of the requirements of the sustainability plans is that each university must return to the student-faculty ratio that existed in the mid-2000s, when our enrollments were at their peak. The student-faculty ratios are identified as a measure of efficiency, but I wonder if it is a measure of efficiency why there are 14 different ones. I was in the classroom during those years, and it was no panacea. The discipline-specific introductory class that I taught with a typical enrollment of 45 swelled to 125. Could I teach an auditorium class? Sure. Was it the same experience for my students? I'll let you be the judge of that. My upper division courses were likewise larger, so it was challenging for me to write letters of recommendation or to provide information to individuals in the criminal justice system conducting background checks on students that I had in class. The classes that our retired faculty and adjuncts previously taught still have to be delivered. And this has resulted in many faculty members being asked to teach additional classes on overload. Hence, they're teaching additional classes that have more students than before, and this actually costs more than it saves. Apparently, the increased costs and overloads are worth it in order to meet the student-faculty ratio, as the more faculty you have, the lower the ratio. But faculty do more than teach classes. Advising is critically important for our students, and doing it well is time-consuming. You must be able to assist them in understanding their curriculum requirements, talk with them about their progress in classes, link them to campus resources if needed, speak with them about career and employment opportunities, and provide other assistance that they might need. Just as class sizes are growing, the number of advisees that a faculty member has is also increasing. This results in less time one can devote to these students, and good advising is linked to retaining students. In addition to teaching their classes and advising students, we're expected to engage in scholarly activities and in service activities, and both of these are diminished. It's important to stay engaged in research activities. This helps one stay current in their discipline, and students benefit when their professor can share their expertise. In my discipline and many others, there's an expectation that we attend professional conferences to prevent our research findings. However, university budgets have been shrinking, and so have professional development funds to provide that support. Providing service to one's department, college, university, and the community or the academy is the third area in which faculty are expected to be engaged. But I'm learning of the difficulty of finding faculty members to volunteer and or run for university-wide, college-wide, and department-level committees. Many of the committees that are critical to the functioning of the university are heavy workload ones, but with fewer faculty who have less time, committee work of that magnitude is overwhelming. As I said, faculty are exhausted and beginning to disengage. This is what is happening on all of our campuses, and it is exacerbated on the campuses that experienced retrenchment in 2020 and those facing it now, and on the 6 campuses that are in the process of being consolidated. Morale is at an all-time low on those campuses. Of critical importance at Penn West and Commonwealth is the development of the curriculum for each new university, and the faculty are hard at work on this in both regions. They are working on discipline-specific curriculum that will require the blending of departmental curriculum requirements that may be very different across the current universities. It will require the determination of departmental requirements for students by faculty spread across multiple universities. And this has been hampered by the restructuring of departments and colleges. As part of this reorganization, some departments are now in different colleges, some departments have been split, some departments are now merged. Some programs will no longer exist. Beyond the departmental curricula, the general education component will have to be developed. And this is a difficult challenge, and developing the general education requirement should be a thoughtful and interactive one with much input from faculty at all 6 universities. In some meetings that have occurred, we have heard some have said that the faculty are excited. They are not. The amount of time and effort that developing a new curriculum will take is considerable, and I continue to hear how overwhelmed they are. So now let's consider the impact on our students. We have heard and we know just how important increasing enrollments are for our universities. The 2 ways to do that is to bring in new students, including transfer students, and to retain more of those students when they arrive. Clearly, affordability is a major factor in both of these efforts, increased funding and lower student debt loads. But other factors are important as well. Having the programs that are of interest to students, and that includes more than just workforce development types of degree programs. It means getting to know your classmates and your faculty members in a meaningful way, in the classroom and out of it. It means finding a welcoming and inclusive environment. It means being able to access critical student services. But what we are seeing on many of our campuses is antithetical to these goals. As I mentioned, class sizes are increasing, as are the number of advisees. A spinoff of the reduction in the number of faculty is difficult in offering enough electives for our students. I know from my time in the classroom and as the chair of our department that students are often angered when the class that they wish to take is not being offered. In short, opportunities for students are being constricted and not enhanced. The reduction in the AFSCME workforce has meant fewer department secretaries, who are often the first point of contact for our students, longer waits in administrative offices, fewer groundskeepers, etc. The faculty at Penn West and Commonwealth have heard from students that they are very concerned about what to expect at these universities next fall. Recruitment of new students has been hampered by the uncertainty that exists. Faculty at the 6 consolidating schools worry that enrollments will be negatively impacted and have wondered aloud, why would a student come to a consolidated university knowing that they will have to take online classes when they can go to Slippery Rock or East Stroudsburg and know that they will have face-to-face ones? Further, at these 2 universities, it is still unclear how many online classes a student will have to take to progress toward graduation. While this is related to the curriculum development, the course schedules at our universities are recommended by chairs, but must be approved by deans. Hence, the administration at the 2 new universities will have to decide on which campus courses will be taught and the modality. If a course is taught in Bloomsburg in person, students from Lock Haven and Mansfield will ostensibly have to take that course via Zoom. It's possible that students on some campuses will need to enroll in more online classes than students at others. Given our experiences during the pandemic, how do we prevent these students from being disenfranchised and having a lesser experience than their classmates who are in the physical classroom? This is going to be even more complicated in disciplines that require labs or studios and when disciplines will exist only on one of the campuses. For example, if a student at Clarion wants to major in chemistry, but the chemistry major only exists at California, how will that work? Our coaches and student athletes are still awaiting the decision of the NCAA. Their spring meeting is next week, and there's a chance that they will consider the continuation of athletic teams at each campus at the consolidated universities. And we are very hopeful that the current athletic teams will exist and be able to compete. But I know that one coach that I spoke with is trying to figure out if the NCAA will allow for the Penn West Clarion Golden Eagle basketball team to compete against the Penn West Edinburgh Fighting Scots basketball team. If the NCAA decides that sports teams at a single accredited university cannot compete against another team at the same accredited university, what then? What does that mean for athletes who are on scholarship and for those who are not? I want to conclude by talking about the second pass around the lunch table with the 14 chapter presidents last Friday. They began to tell me about the positives that they are seeing. Collaboration among the 6 at the consolidating universities, a university receiving R2 status, students preparing to present their research papers to various audiences, students beginning to get acceptance letters from graduate schools, including Harvard and other prestigious universities, students beginning to hear about job opportunities and offers, and preparing to do internships. One of the chapter presidents told me that her only respite from all of the gloom is in the classroom with her students. Despite the exhaustion, the faculty remained committed to our students and their successes. But I must tell you, I'm concerned about them and their health. We have been down the road of increasing student enrollments before, larger class sizes, advising issues and concerns, longer waits for services. The uncertainty of the consolidation and the low morale that exists on many of our campuses will continue to make it difficult for active engagement. The lack of affordability and the prospect of taking on more and more debt continues to have an impact. Because of all of these reasons, I'm afraid that both recruitment and retention will be negatively impacted as it was in the past. I implore you again to listen carefully to the individuals who interact most with our students and what they are telling you, because they are the pipeline to the students. Not long ago, they told a similar cautionary tale, but when we don't learn from our history, we're bound to make the same mistakes. Lastly, these will be my final remarks as president of Abscuff. I know that you have not always appreciated what I have said, but I have appreciated each and every opportunity that I have had to bring the views of my colleagues to all of you. I chose not to seek re-election due to medical treatment that lies ahead for me, and I have to devote my energy to that fight. My dear friend, Dr. Kenneth Mash, agreed to run for this position again, and he was elected to that position for the next 2 years. His commitment to our members and our union is unparalleled, and I know that he will once again provide thoughtful remarks on behalf of our colleagues. Thank you again for your time, and I want to wish all of you continued good health.
Thank you very, very much, Dr. Martin, for your remarks and for being a voice for the faculty union. And please know that every one of us on the board wishes you nothing but the best as you face your medical treatments. We'll all be thinking about you. You're in our hearts.
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me now call on Melissa Bauer to speak for the Pennsylvania Association of Councils of Trustees.
Thank you, Chair Shapira. Good morning, Board of Governors, Chancellor, President, staff, and colleagues. On behalf of Jack Wabby, the President of the PA Council of Trustees, we thank you for the opportunity to share our updates. We held our in-person conference March 24th and 25th at Hershey Lodge. It was wonderful to see old friends and meet new people who are coming on as trustees. We had a huge contingent of student trustees, and our speakers and topics were impressive, supporting the overall theme of trustees in action. PAC has issued a call to action to all trustees during the next 90 days. We know that trustees provide ample service to their universities by advocating, attending meetings, graduations, programs, and we are asking them to make the call to their representatives and senators to support the POSHI funding request for the 2022 budget. Our meeting kicked off with Representative Kurt Sonny, Chair of the House Education Committee, who gave us a background on the budget process and how PASHI has made important changes during the past several years. A point Chair Sonny made when he closed was he never hears from constituents about higher education. He does hear about K through 12 and preschool, and he initiated a call to the trustees present to use their voices and contact their senators and representatives. We also had a new trustee orientation that Randy Goyne and Chief Counsel Andy Lehman put on that was informative and very well attended. The president's panel, facilitated by President Wuba and panelists Dale Elizabeth Pearson of the Integrating University in the West and Bashar Hanna for the Integrating University in the Northeast. We had an update on integration and the allocation formula. Next, we had a presentation by Dr. Denise Pearson, VP of DEI, that ended with a robust discussion and how trustees can be involved, including asking all trustees to review the Board of Governors statement on diversity, equity, and inclusion. One key attendant, which I believe was a student, felt that the takeaway was treat everyone with human dignity so our universities are welcoming. Friday morning started with Dr. Tanya Garcia and the state of higher education in Pennsylvania. This presentation builds off of the DEI discussion of a culture of human dignity and the feeling of belonging. Based on the conversation yesterday at the workshop regarding retention, it's clear students who are involved in athletics, marching band, clubs, student government have that sense of belonging and therefore have higher retention rates. We had an update from the faculty union president, Dr. Jamie Martin, that informed us on struggles of the faculty during COVID and how they've responded to ensure a high quality education for our students. Cody Jones, Chief Strategic Relations Officer, and Randy Goyne did a presentation on advocacy that encourages all trustees to visit the PASHI website to see the information regarding advocacy on a monthly basis. We closed with an update on system redesign, which featured Chair Shapira and Chancellor Dan. All the presentations are available on the PASHI website. Finally, I want to close with congratulating Elizabeth Bennett from Edinburgh on receiving the Alizady Award. I had the privilege and the pleasure of serving with for many years as a trustee at Clarion University. He believed in the state system. He believed in the Board of Governors and the enterprising in assuring student voices in the promotion of a science-based education. He is the longest serving trustee in the state system. He started in 1980 and never relinquished his zeal for service as a Clarion trustee until his death in 2019, an epic 39 years of service. He embodied trustees who believed in education, he believed in student success, and he believed in affordability. Thank you for your time, and we look forward to working with you in the future.
Terrific. Thank you so very much. We appreciate your remarks, and that's a great update on the meeting, which I very much enjoyed. Let us now turn to the consent agenda. We are going to consider consent agenda items in one motion. unless any member wishes to have an item voted on separately. If so, please let me know. There are, I believe, 2 items.
And if you're on Zoom, you can just click the raise hand if you need anything separated out from the consent agenda.
Just so you know, I'll just briefly, it's just the minutes on the 2 items on the consent agenda, minutes and the authority to make ministerial changes to board documents, given that we've moved from Dixon Center.
All right, no hands
Make a
in.
motion to approve the consent agenda.
Did somebody make a motion?
That was
I did.
Jan.
Oh, thank you, Jan. Okay, is there a second?
Second, Briggs.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you very much. Let us now go to the best part of the meeting, our Student Success Spotlight. We have a wonderful opportunity to recognize student excellence and achievement in our system. So let me now turn to David Mazur, Vice Chair of the Board and Chair of the Student Success Committee, to moderate the Alizady Award presentation.
Thank you, Chairwoman Shapira. Is that better? Don't want to get any meaningful feedback. It's good to see you all in person. It's good to be here in our lovely home for the day. A little bit of background. Created in 2000 by the State System Foundation, the Zayed Alizady Award for Academic Excellence is conferred annually upon a graduating senior from one of the state system universities. This award was founded by Dr. Alizady, who we were kind enough to hear some very, very dear words about just a few minutes ago, who was a charter member of this Board of Governors. Funding for this Academic Excellence Award has been made possible through gifts from Dr. Alizady, Highmark, and the Pesci Foundation. We'd, of course, also like to acknowledge Mrs. Cynthia Pritchard, President and CEO of the foundation, for all of her hard work. The Pesci Foundation has been a valuable partner in supporting and enhancing student persistence, completion, excellence, internships, and employment. The 14 students who were nominated by their universities for the 2022 Alizady Award truly represent the very best talent, motivation, and remarkable accomplishments that our students are able to muster. In recognition of their achievements, the 13 finalists will each receive a certificate signed by the Chancellor and I, as well as a $50 award from the foundation. And now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce President Elizabeth Pearson, Interim President of Edinburgh University, to come to the podium and introduce our 2022 Alizady Award winner.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for inviting me to speak on behalf of Elizabeth Bennett, or Lizzie. I have a few comments. It is my privilege to present to Elizabeth Bennett as Edinburgh University's nominee for the 2022 Dr. Alizady Award of Academic Excellence. Ms. Bennett's success demonstrates what makes the Pennsylvania state system of higher education such a significant asset to the Commonwealth. Lizzie was nominated by not one, but 2 separate departments at Edinburgh University, the Psychology Department and the Mathematics and Computer Science Department. Elizabeth will earn a dual baccalaureate degree in psychology and data analytics in May of 2022, with minors in mathematics and music. She will also be one of the first nominees to earn their certificate in cannabis science and industry. Elizabeth currently posts a 4.0 GPA and has been named to the Dean's List every semester for her enrollment at the university. Elizabeth is actively engaged in scholarly activities, working closely with psychology professor Dr. Peter McLaughlin, where she co-authored an article in a peer-reviewed journal, Pharmacology, Biochemistry, and Behavior, published early in 2021. She also has a second article in preparation. In taking full advantage of the opportunities provided by PASHE, Elizabeth models the best values of our Commonwealth: a thirst for learning, self-growth, a practical experience, an ethic of hard work and perseverance, and a commitment to service. She also exemplifies the spirit of the Dr. Alizady Award of Academic Excellence and is most deserving of this distinguished award. Elizabeth presented research at the Edinburgh University's Celebration of Scholarship and Western Pennsylvania's Undergraduate Psychology Conference in 2021. Elizabeth will conduct research in data analytics program during her final semester at the university. She is member of the Edinburgh University Honors College and Psi Chi, an International Honor Society for Psychology. She has also received several scholarship awards and recognition. She's an amazing band leader as well. In addition to her outstanding work, Lizzie has been an incredible active leader on the campus. She served as drum major and president of the Edinburgh Marching Band for the past 3 years and invited me to co-do the concert with her out of the field. It was amazing. And she's very tall and I'm not, so it was quite a picture. In addition, she did this progress as a Student Government Association member, as she's a Congress member as well. I am pleased to also recognize her from the Representative Ryan Bizzaro, who gave her recognition from the House of Representatives for receiving the Dr. Alizady Award of Academic Excellence for the Pennsylvania System of Higher Education. Congratulations, Lizzie and her parents. Please come. Lizzie, would you please say a few words?
Absolutely. I want to thank everyone who was involved in this process. I am truly honored to receive this. And I'd also like to say that I've had so many wonderful opportunities at Edinburgh University in psychology and data analytics. And all of my professors have been absolutely fantastic. And I'd definitely like to thank them because without the professors and without you guys, I wouldn't be where I am today. So thank you all.
Lizzie, on behalf of the board, here is your citation. I'm actually just going to give this to your parents. Congratulations to both of you. And more importantly, a check. That'll give to you. And can we get some photos?
And Madam Chair, we're going to pause here just to take some photos in the room.
Good, great.
Here, I'll get on the other side.
How about in front of the wood? How about in front of the wood? I'll wait.
Yeah, it'll be just a minute.
We'll be back.
Thank you, everyone, for that brief pause while we got our photos taken. And Madam Chair, we're able to return to business now.
All right, very good. Wonderful. Well, congratulations again. Terrific award to an outstanding student. And it's just such a beautiful thing. I love it. Thank you again. Let me now turn to Dan after that wonderful moment with you, Elizabeth. And Dan, we're ready for your remarks.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I will be brief. So first thing is that over the last few months, it's been possible to get back onto our campuses and to visit our universities, as I typically do every semester. But this semester, there have been a few which are face to face, and I got to tell you, it is really such a great feeling to be back and to be seeing people in 3 dimensions, as someone said previously. And to be sort of watching life come back on our campuses as people are beginning to peek a little bit outside their bubbles and beginning to engage. It's not quite as it was in 2019, early part of 2020, but get a sense that there's this revitalization happening. And it's, of course, great to see the fantastic work of the universities, the work that our wonderful faculty and staff do for our students like Lizzie, the energy that we all put into ensuring their success. So that's really been, in some ways, a blessing to be able to return. And I look forward to continuing in the hope that we are beginning to see the end of this very disruptive pandemic. The work of the integrations proceeds apace. We've hit every significant milestone in the implementation. It's a lot of work. Transactionally, it's a significant amount of detail, impacting hundreds of faculty and staff, but it is going forward. As you'll know, we heard favorably from the Middle States Commission on Higher Education, which has confirmed accreditation for the integrated entities, which gives them a path to launch themselves on July 1st as newly embodied corporate structures, and then to prepare the way for the first cohort of students, which will materialize in fall. We obviously expect to hear from the NCAA as well in the next couple of weeks, making hopefully another major step forward in this direction. I really do want to call out the folks who are working hard and diligently and creatively, quite frankly. The technology teams in particular, as they're beginning to integrate technology stacks as necessary so that everything works on opening day, July 1st. For the organizational structure, and then of course for the students in the fall. The faculty already mentioned who are working to blend the various curricula of the student affairs folks who are beginning to integrate and learn from each other about various different kinds of practices which help to support and sustain our students. All goes well. I do, if you run into somebody who is involved in the integration work, give them a virtual hug. It is hard work, and I genuinely appreciate the effort that are being demonstrated. The last point I think I'll make is that, I don't want to get too far out over our skis, but there is an opportunity, there has been an opportunity this year, thanks to the generosity of the General Assembly and the allocation of $50 million in one-time federal funds, combined with the $25 million from the prepayment of our pension CSRS obligation, have really provided an opportunity across the universities to begin to invest again in our students. As you know, 25 or so million of those dollars were spent specifically in ways that will improve our student outcomes, that will expand the work that we are engaged in to ensure all of our campuses are welcoming to all of their members, of their community members, and to do some interesting and innovative work with workforce aligned credentials. It's so interesting to watch that happen in a context where we have been so focused on what I would refer to as recession management, cost cutting, or certainly a lot of conscientious thought being given to expenditure. It is delightful to begin to think about investment and not just because investment is good, but because investment is necessary if we are to serve the students of the state, and if we are to serve the state in the way that a public institution needs to. So that has been refreshing. I look forward to coming back in the July and fall meetings to begin to report on some of the outcomes that we're seeing result from that investment. I think we'll be pleased by it. It allows us to support students like Lizzie and many, many others in the way that they deserve and that we intend. So let me draw a line there. There's other agenda items that I know we'll want to get to, and I appreciate the opportunity to provide my remarks. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chancellor. We appreciate that. I'm feeling good energy as we continue to move forward. And my thanks as well, and the thanks of the board to not only your team, but Dale, Bashar, their teams, and everybody on the campuses that who are working so hard on these integrations and on system redesign. So let me now turn to the next order of business, which is the work of our Governance and Leadership Committee. As a reminder, we do committee meetings as part of our full board session so that all board members are able to engage and ask questions. Vice Chair Sam Smith, let me turn it over to you to moderate this session of the Governance and Leadership Committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We will commence this committee meeting while the members of the committee are the only ones who will actually vote at this point in time. Certainly, as the chair just indicated, anybody else is free to make comment or ask questions if that were the case. We'll begin by asking Trissa to call the roll.
Certainly. Governor Smith,
Here.
Governor Mazur,
Present.
Senator Martin,
Here.
Governor Roberts,
Here.
Senator Schwank.
Here.
Thank you. And Chair Shapira is ex officio.
Here.
Thank you. You have a quorum.
Thank you very much. One of the important duties of this committee is to appoint the student trustees for the respective individual universities. And the universities have had a pretty well developed recruiting process to identify and vet potential candidates in order to make recommendations for this appointment. And it's a process that's really been driven at the local level because the universities know their students the best. In the agenda packet, there's information regarding 4 student trustee candidates that we will consider today. And being a trustee myself at IUP, I know how important this process is for the council and how seriously they take this. And most of us have been very, very fortunate with this process leading to excellent student trustees across the system. So to begin this, I just want to make one comment relative to one of the trustees that we'll be appointing, and that's for Mansfield University, which, as we all know, is in the process of being integrated with Lock Haven and Bloomsburg. And we're going to go ahead and make this appointment. First of all, it's a couple of months till that integration is finalized, and so we felt that it was important for Mansfield to have their student trustees, not knowing what might come up between now and then, and this was important. And then, secondly, our board passed a resolution requiring the creation of a councils of campus commissioners to ensure every campus has a voice, regardless of what the council of trustees structure looks like. And because of that, we'll need a student commissioner on each campus, and this appointment could fill that need as well. So I'm just kind of adding that for our general information. At this point, I would like to ask each president to say a few words about their student trustee, and then we will vote on the 4 in one motion at the end. But let's have the introductions right now. We'll begin with Jenna Nyla from Mansfield, and I will ask President Bashar Hanna to speak to us about Jenna.
Good morning. Thank you, Vice Chair. I'm pleased to recommend Ms. Jenna Nyla for consideration as a student trustee at Mansfield University to replace Ms. Sarah Hart, who has served Mansfield University admirably. Jenna is a sophomore in the Elementary Education Academic Exploration Program. She's hyper involved on campus. She participates in the concert choir, the symphonic band, and the marching band. She's also a student employee on campus in our library and has responsibilities as serving in the library stacks. She's recommended by the search committee, which includes representatives from trustees, students, faculty, and staff. Our current student trustee, as I mentioned, Ms. Sarah Hart, will be graduating in May and has served us admirably. So I have no reservations in recommending Ms. Jenna Nile for your consideration. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you, President Hannah. The next student is Rangeline De Jesus from Shippensburg, and I will ask President Patterson to give us a little background about Rangeline.
Thank you. Shippensburg University is excited for Rangeline De Jesus to be joining Shippensburg's Council of Trustees. Rangeline is an active and award-winning student leader was a student leader at Reading High School in her community and has established herself as a leader at Shippensburg as well. Rangeline is an advocate for students and a residential assistant, and I'm certain that her experience will serve SHIP well as a trustee. Rangeline is ready and well prepared to become the student voice on the Council of Trustees. And while the council works to serve and advocate for students, inclusive of underrepresented students, Rangeline's voice truly represents the diversity of our student body and their needs, interests, and priorities. Rangeline understands the importance of service and will become an integral part of the leadership that will carry SHIP into the future. And while Rangeline could not be with us today as she's in Washington, D.C., representing Shippensburg University on a class trip, I and the members of the Council of Trustees look forward to working very closely with Rangeline and thank her in advance for her continued service. Thank you.
Thank you, President Patterson. I'll now recognize President Barry from Slippery Rock to give us the background about Brooklyn Graham.
Thank you, Governor Smith. It's my pleasure to introduce you to Brooklyn Graham. Brooklyn is a junior majoring in political science at SRU. She is a student leader on campus. She is a research assistant and committee member for the President's Commission on Racial and Ethnic Diversity, a first seminar peer leader, an academic coach for the Center for Career and Academic Progress, a Jumpstart mentor for the Office of Inclusive Excellence, and an executive board member for the Black Action Society. She is an exemplary student and is a recipient of numerous academic scholarships. In the summer of 2021, Brooklyn was selected to represent SRU on a working group committee led by Vice Chancellor Denise Pearson to review First Amendment policies for all system schools. Personally, I found Brooklyn to be one of the most intellectually engaging students that I've had a pleasure of knowing in all of my years as an educator. I'm confident that she'll be an exemplary member of the Council of Trustees at Slippery Rock University.
Thank you very much. The fourth student is from Westchester. Her name is Julie Ward, and I will ask President Florentino to give us a report about her.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm delighted to introduce Ms. Julie Ward. Julie is a double major in accounting and finance. She's a Dean's List student throughout. She started at the university in our remote pandemic year and still became incredibly engaged and involved on the campus. I would have to say that up to that point, that would be typical of any of the applicants we would get for this position, because the students who usually apply are outstanding students. And we look for something a little extra, a little unique. And I would like to read from Julie's narrative in her application packet, just a brief excerpt which speaks to her uniqueness in my view. She had an internship at Dutch Wonderland after her first year of college. And this is what happened. This past summer, I had an accounting finance internship and was the finance assistant for the whole summer. However, 2 weeks into my internship, the finance manager left. So I had to fill his role for the remainder of the summer. This gave me the opportunity to present my work and research to our corporate offices in California and Spain. I also went to the daily manager on duty meetings and represented the finance cash control department as a whole. I also feel I had the ability to learn material efficiently, sorry, and work in teams and by myself. I had 2 weeks before the manager quit to learn all the functions. Not everything was taught to me. So I took the initiative upon myself to backtrack 5 years of data to forecast our budget and learn the functions of material I was unfamiliar with. I was able to reach out to other finance managers at our sister parks to get help. With this role, I was also in charge of managing a staff of 10 people. This was my first time leading a team solo. I had to hold daily meetings and really listen to their concerns. I was their voice, and I liked being able to help them as much as I could. This is a person who has finished 1 year of college who has stepped into this role, and I am excited to have her joining our COT, replacing Erin Kalazak, who has been an outstanding member for us. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sounds like you better not leave the door to your office unlocked. That's wonderful. I have said this oftentimes, just with my experience at IUP. The students that engage with the board and and as well as our student board of governors members, they're downright frightening to me sometimes, to be candid. They're just their abilities, their poise, their maturity. It's actually really quite exciting to engage with them. At this point, I would like to have a motion that the Board of Governors hereby appoints Jenna Nyla to Mansfield University Council of Trustees, Rangeline DeJesus to the Shippensburg University Council of Trustees, Brooklyn Graham to the Slippery Rock University Council of Trustees, and Julie Ward to the Westchester University Council of Trustees. May I have a motion to that effect, Mr. Mazur? And second?
Second.
Thank you, Cindy. Is there any discussion or comment further about these candidates?
I'd just like to warn President Fiorentino not to miss a day of school. You will likely be replaced.
And there are no hands on Zoom either.
Thank you very much. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any objections? Hearing none, the motion is adopted. A couple of our students are with us via Zoom. A couple of them could not be with, two of them could not be with us because of other commitments. But I'd like to recognize them just for a minute if they would like to say hello and tell us anything they'd like about their experiences. So Brooklyn, are you available?
We'll give Brooklyn a moment to come off
There
of
she is.
Zoom, off of mute. Great.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I just want to say thank you. It's truly an honor to even be nominated for this position. And one thing I'm most excited about is just getting the opportunity to continue my advocacy work and bringing a new perspective to our Council of Trustees. So thank you.
Great, thank you very much. And good luck. I think it's a pretty good experience for the students too, just being involved in the kind of behind the scenes discussions and decision-making process. So hopefully it's a two-way street there. One of the other student with us, Jenna Nyla, is with us. Jenna, would you like to say a few words?
We'll give her a moment to come off of Zoom, off of mute rather.
I just wanted to express my gratitude to Sarah and to the search committee, and as well as to all of you on the Board of Governors for affording me this opportunity. Even with it being my first year here at Mansfield, I have definitely kind of found my place to learn and grow and continue in my college career. That took me some time to figure out, but I'm really glad that it's Mansfield. And I am really excited to have this opportunity to be able to give back and to support my peers as well.
Great, thank you very much. And we wish you good luck in your adventures as a student trustee as well. I believe that concludes all of our business of the committee today, Madam Chair. So I will conclude our meeting and turn it back over to you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. That was absolutely wonderful. I thoroughly enjoy that, and welcome new student trustees. You're all just incredible. So I think we are going to take a 10-minute break before we transition into University Success Committee's session. So Randy, do you have that horrific clock? Or you're just going to come back at 10:15?
Yes, we'll just have everybody come back at 10:15. How about that?
All right, good.
Thanks.
She's feisty.
Randy, are we reassembled?
Those on Zoom, if you want to go ahead and turn your video back on, we will get started in just a moment while folks here in the room get settled.
All right, sounds good.
Okay, Madam Chair, I think we can go ahead and get started.
Thank you.
All right, terrific. Thank you very much. Okay, we are now at the point in our agenda when we're ready to have our University Success Committee meeting, which has a number of important issues to talk about. So let me now turn to Governor Larry Skinner, who is chair of that committee, to moderate this session.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To start our committee meeting, I'll ask Sharisa to take roll of the committee members.
Certainly. Governor Skinner.
Here.
Governor Weaver.
Here.
Governor Gindelsberger.
Present.
Secretary Jones.
Here.
Representative Roy.
Here.
Governor Scott.
Here.
Governor Yeomans.
Here.
And Chair Shapira is ex officio.
And I'm here. And again, let me encourage all board members to engage in the discussion, particularly as tuition is one of the items. And the full board will be voting on these committee actions today. So thank you, Larry. Sorry about that. I just wanted to restate that as a reminder. So go ahead.
It's never a problem and most certainly appreciated. Today, we have several action items associated with the University Success Committee for consideration by the board. One regarding a university facility sale opportunity, another to address Mansfield University's financial sustainability needs and its cumulative loan obligation, and lastly, our action regarding tuition. These are important items that reflect the ongoing priority focuses for our system surrounding financial sustainability and affordability. With respect to tuition, over the last several years, the University Success Committee and the board have taken historic steps to put timely, student-centered net price strategies at the forefront. The system is at a pivotal point given the appropriation request to the General Assembly and proposed in the governor's budget. Universities have been undergoing transformative activities since 2019, prior to and during the pandemic. While we will not know the outcome of the state's investment until the budget passes in June, we are hopeful that working collaboratively with the General Assembly, we can keep the system affordable for our students. I would like to ask Molly Mercer to present the first action item, the Mansfield University Loan and Cumulative Loan Obligation Action. Molly.
Thank you, Chair Skinner. This action for Mansfield's loan has several components. Good now. The motion approves an estimated $7 million loan that Mansfield University requires to support their cash flow needs through the current fiscal year. This action was anticipated as outlined in their budgeting in the fall and in their budget refreshes again this spring. Secondly, this motion addresses the cumulative loan obligation for Mansfield. In addition to this year's loan, the board has previously approved loans to Mansfield in fiscal 20 and fiscal 21 that have been required to support ongoing operations. To ensure the financial sustainability of the upcoming integrated university, Commonwealth University of Pennsylvania will not assume the $20 million of cumulative cash flow loan obligations of Mansfield. Therefore, an additional step is required to remove the note payable reflecting this cumulative loan obligation off Mansfield's financials in fiscal 21-22. The cumulative obligation is transferred to the state system with repayment to be funded with one-time funds from the CSRS pension pre-funding program. These payments would follow the loan repayment schedule that's been established for Mansfield, with the payments beginning in fiscal 25 and occurring annually through fiscal 31. Those annual payments generally range between $2 and $4 million. This treatment of the loan obligation is consistent with the approach outlined in the Northeast Integration Plan. The last component of the action describes ongoing monitoring to ensure continued focus of financial sustainability at Commonwealth University. This generally includes providing the system with data around housing, enrollment, and occupancy, as well as progress updates around financial sustainability. Overall, this action item aligns with the integration planning that's been ongoing for the Northeast. Chair Skinner, back to you.
Thank you, Molly. I would now like to move the motion found on pages 38, 39. The motion has several parts that are to be taken as a whole, but I will step through each. That the Board of Governors approve a loan for Mansfield University of Pennsylvania of up to $7 million. That the Board of Governors approve the fiscal year 2021-22 transfer of Mansfield University's total loan obligations estimated to be $20 million to the state system for repayment with funds from the CSRS pre-funding program through fiscal year 2030-31. That the Board of Governors deems that the Board of Governors deems satisfied the Mansfield University fiscal year 2019-20 and fiscal year 2021 promissory notes and associated loan covenants. That the Board of Governors approve as of July 1st, 2022, monitoring of Commonwealth University of Pennsylvania. The monitoring items are outlined on page 39 and pertain to providing comprehensive planning information, periodic progress updates, and complying with actions the board directs to achieve financially sustainability. Do I have a second?
Second.
Are there any questions or discussions?
And we'll give board members some time on the Zoom to click raise hand if you have any questions or comments. And Mr. Chair, there's Senator Martin.
I have a question.
Oh, we'll go to Senator Martin, then Governor Bogle.
Thank you. Obviously, we were presented this yesterday, and we obviously can't engage into further debate on some of the answers. But here's a more direct question. I understand the answer I was given yesterday was in terms of Commonwealth's budget, this deficit that's been running with Mansfield, obviously, at least from what I was told, is not to be expected to have a hole moving forward. I think more so from an accountability standpoint, I'm definitely interested in knowing now that this is the third year in a row. We're talking about $20 million total. And obviously budgets that were approved are going into budgets, realizing that their expenditures were greatly exceeding their revenues. I'd like to know personally what specific actions have been taken over 3 budget cycles to close that hole, because it seems as if, I think there was one year where it swayed went from 7 million to 6 million in terms of loans. Now it's back to 7 million. What has been done, as we certainly have seen through other institutions, some who are sitting in that room, a real effort to try to bring their expenditures more in line with revenues. So I'm just a little perplexed as to why that number hasn't changed over 3 years, especially with something as serious as using these one-time injections of fund for operating expenditures. So could someone give me a little more concrete answer on that?
Sure, I'll add a couple of remarks and turn it to President Hanna. So, Mansfield certainly has been grappling with a lot of the challenges of our other rural universities. They're declining enrollment. In that regard, they have taken steps around retrenchment and workforce realignment. They're also addressing challenges and facing challenges in their housing operation as well. But if President Hanna wants to add some more specifics.
Thank you, Molly. And good morning, Senator Martin. I think the best way to summarize a response to your question is it takes multiple years to really fix a structural deficit. We have right-sized our workforce, not just faculty and staff, but the executive team and the management team. I think moving forward, if you look at the Commonwealth University budget submissions, we do not anticipate needing another loan. And in actuality, we anticipate being close to a balanced budget by 25, 26. But the structural deficit at Mansfield did not start 3 years ago. It started a decade or more ago with the erosion of enrollment. And we are fixing the footprint of that campus now. We've demolished 3 buildings. And I think there's at least 1, if not 2 more that are slated to also come down. This is a multi-year process that is not just an event for us to address the needs of the Northern Tier while simultaneously not creating a higher ed desert up there. I hope that helps, but happy to be more specific if you'd like.
No, I appreciate that. And I realize they've been part of the integration. I think one of my bigger concerns, and listen, I've run very big budgets myself with, county government agencies and other, and I understand at the end of the day, I just don't know if I'm quite grappling. I understand you say there's been things that have been done to reduce costs, but we haven't seen the hole closing. We didn't see the hole. Now, granted, moving forward, it is at what expense that may be in terms of the other 2 institutions. I mean, I don't know. You certainly understand the intricacies of Commonwealth's budget. It's just that, when we're continuing to see that same number over a 3-year period of time, where we've seen other institutions who have actually taken concrete actions to close gaps. And so that's what's not quite adding up in my head, because in practice, we should see that number, if we were taking actions, start to close. And, just looking at it as an appropriator, it just doesn't make sense to me. So I appreciate that. I know you've done an excellent job at Bloomsburg and positioning Commonwealth, Mr. President. And I know a lot of these problems have been going on for a while, but I think this one I find to be really perplexing given the actions that have been taken at some of our other institutions. So thank you for your comments.
Senator Martin, if I just may, I think the only comment I would make, I appreciate the comments. When the denominator is so small, it is really difficult to fix a structural problem in 1, 2, or 3 years. Mansfield's enrollment right now is around 1,600 students. If we were at 3,000 or 4,000, fixing the problem would be a lot easier because you actually would have revenue coming in. Every student matters. So having a denominator that's so tiny is one of the reasons that we have not had maybe the progress that you're looking for. And honestly, without integration, I'm not sure what would have become of the structural issues at Mansfield. They probably would have gotten worse, not better, over the coming years. I appreciate your vigilance, and we're working forward together on fixing it as part of Commonwealth University as a team.
Thank you.
And Governor Bogle had a question.
I think the senator asked most, if not all, of my questions. Substantively, how do we get here, and what is the plan to extricate us from where we are with this loan? Are there more expected? I mean, I'd like to know more about how we got here and how we expect to get out of it in detail.
Governor Bogle, I think we got here through multiple years of eroding enrollment. The population base in the Mansfield area of recruitment has deteriorated significantly over the last decade. Our affordability has also gone down. We're no longer as affordable as we used to be. We overbuilt. I can't say that any differently than that. Moving forward, without integration, things would have gone much worse. So to your point or your question about how do we get out of this, the best chance we have at avoiding a higher ed desert in the Mansfield area is through integrating with Lock Haven and Bloomsburg.
I would just add, Mr. Bogle, that the integration reports are also very helpful, I think, at outlining a lot of those challenges and how integration serves to rectify them.
Yeah, I was going to point that out. Thank you. And, Mr. Bogle, if any of us are happy to meet with you offline, right? And sort of go through the history even more in as much depth as you want. But, a lot of the information is available in those reports, and really in all of the work that's, sort of led up to, this point and throughout our redesign work over the last 4 years. But we're happy to, talk more about this offline so that you're at a point where you really feel, comfortable about understanding the history of where we've been and, where we need to go.
Being a new member of the board, I'm certainly I'm certain that leads to my questions. It would appear some of you saw this coming. And now we're here. I would welcome the opportunity to speak at another time in detail about this. But I know from my own experiences at another institution, there certainly were concerns expressed by the chancellor and the board about different issues that they apparently saw coming, of which I was led to believe many of those have been resolved or straightened out, if not resolved. But I would like to know, I'm back to where the senator was asking, and my question is, we had to have seen this coming, and where are we now, and how do we expect to extricate ourselves from this, whether you have this integration plan or not, because this may not, it appears this isn't the end of that question. So I, again, would welcome an offline discussion about that without being accusatory in any way at all.
Of course, we want every board member, we want everybody in the public. We're very transparent, and we certainly want everybody to understand, because if you don't understand where we came from, it won't make as much sense in understanding what we propose to go forward. So you're 100% right. And we're happy to do that. Go ahead.
If it's helpful, let me just provide a little context to refresh memory of folks, and also to provide new information for folks who are new to the board. So in 2019, when the board approved a sustainability policy, as we began to implement that policy across the system, it became pretty clear pretty quick, really by December October, November 2019, that the result of our implementing the sustainability policy was that universities with low enrollments were going to need significantly to compress their programmatic offerings in order to be able to operate in a balanced budget way. I don't know if we can get rid of that. Okay, thanks. So that we could operate in a balanced budget way. That is when we began conversations initially with the executive leadership group, the presidents and myself, about the various options that were in front of the board, given that reality. And you may recall that in July 2020, we came back to the board with the recommendation that we integrate universities in order to enable them to provide the breadth of opportunity for their students that they could not support based on their then enrollments. So there were other options that were outlined in that discussion, and obviously we could always revisit them if that were to be seen as being of value. But we pursued integration with that in mind. The result of the integrations we see in the projections for Commonwealth University show that universities operating together can achieve an operating scale that will enable them to mitigate the kind of losses that you see when smaller universities are trying to manage through the financial challenges on their own. So I would urge you to look at the Commonwealth universities projections in that budget, not at the three underlying participating universities budget, because the whole in this case is greater than the sum of the parts. Last thought. It is true for our universities and for universities that scale really matters. It is not entirely surprising that Westchester University, as our largest enrolled school with 17,000 students, has a significantly lower expenditure per student than our smaller schools. And if you actually chart a line which shows expenditure per student by enrollment, there is a direct correlation. And it's partly due to the fact that, whether you have 17,000 students or 6 students, you need a bursar. Not even sure I know what a bursar is. You need facilities management. You need to have a general education curriculum, right? There are overhead costs entailed in managing universities, and the smaller universities have to negotiate those overhead costs. Cheney's a perfect example as well. Have to negotiate those costs with far fewer student-driven revenues, which is why their cost per student is higher. So the integration actually helps us by providing an expanded set of opportunities for our students at Mansfield and other universities and other participating campuses in the Commonwealth University. And it also corrects for the financial shortfalls that Mansfield on its own would have continued to pile up. So I hope that's helpful, and obviously we can follow up later and in great and gory detail if that becomes necessary.
You have been very frank in some conversations I've had at one of our institutions about what the future looks like or looked like. I'm assuming we're looking at all of our schools and how do we mitigate future experiences like this. Like I said, I'd welcome the opportunity to have a discussion about it since I come from the smallest of the institutions within the system. My first meeting with you, by the way, was a very frank and blunt discussion about where we were and your assessment as to where we were going. I'm wondering now, did we have the same conversations with other institutions that were in similar positions? Which is why I'm now asking, have we done this assessment of all of our institutions and where are we going, particularly about this one? And are there others that are on the precipice of being in a very similar situation? And what is the system's overall plan of extrication to resolve this so that we're all a little healthier in the end? That's where I'm going, Mr. Chancellor.
No,
I'm not trying to point fingers. I'm just trying to be participating member and of this board because I consider it to be critical.
We very much appreciate it, Mr. Bogle, and really, as Dan has said, for the past 3 years, even longer than that, beginning with the NCHEM study that we conducted even before Dan came on as chancellor, we have been on this path of unearthing, uncovering, and understanding, exactly what's going on with the system, each individual school, et cetera, and working towards solutions. I think what Dan described as the accountability policy and the information that came out of that really helped us to understand very specifically at each university, based on metrics and the kinds of measures that we do to look at, university financial health, where each one is. That led to the integrations plan, and is continuing to lead to now our emphasis in this new phase of redesign on all guns on enrollment and growth, particularly in areas, in programs, with student populations that have not been given enough opportunity and access to our institution, into areas where workforce need is greatest, ability to retrain and constantly come back into the system for upskilling, et cetera. That's all about what phase 3 is. We've really, in our last 2 phases, first of discovery and then of initial, getting some kind of financial alignment together. We have focused on that piece of the problem. We now realize we're not going to cut our way any longer, and we're all about growth, and we're all about investment by the state to help us achieve that growth. So we're very much aware not only of the situation at each individual university, but from a system point of view as well. How we're going to be moving forward, and that's all what redesign is about. And as I said, we're totally happy to sit down with you offline and go over all of this much more specifically. But yes, your concerns are very valid, and it's exactly the concerns that we've been dealing with. We feel we're getting a good grip on it.
Madam Chair, can I also make one further point? Mr. Bogle, you asked about the future size and shape of the state system. The answer to the question is now in the hands of the General Assembly. The future of the state system is related directly to the level investment that the state chooses to make. We have asked for a certain amount of funding, which is the amount of funding that we need to operate with ruthless efficiency to enable us to serve the state in the way that the state needs us to serve it. Absent that level of investment, there is a different set of conversations that we need to have. So I think right now, we're waiting until June, July, and then we will be able to return to the question that you asked, which is the right question, which is about the trajectory of the system as a whole and its individual universities. Right now, the choice is not ours to make.
Not being a beneficiary of the history, but just looking where we are, this is not intended as a complaint towards leadership nor the board. In the absence of some of the things you already know, these questions are now posed, of which I believe you are trying to answer some of those now, but I'll wait until we have a discussion later on and make no further comment at this time.
Mr. Chair, Representative Roy had a comment, question.
Yeah, when I think about the state system, and when we all think about the state system, if the goal is that Pennsylvania students have an opportunity to participate in getting higher education at a state-owned university, there has to be more than one of them. They need to be kind of spread out around the state where every area has something within a somewhat reasonable distance. Mansfield is way out there in the middle of nowhere. There's not really anything else close by. So I just think it's important that, whether somebody lives right in the Philly area, if they live in Mansfield, or they live near Edinburgh, I just think it's important that students have access to the system. And some of the universities are going to have more financial challenges than others. It's like the Postal Service, the Philadelphia Post Office, where they have multiple ones. They have, hundreds of thousands of customers that live within a couple miles of each of them. If there's a post office in Mansfield, there's probably 1,000 people that live within, a mile of it. So, there's just remote areas where there's not that many people around, but that doesn't mean people don't need services, whether it be higher education or postal service or fire departments or whatever the situation is. Now, so, we do need to keep that in mind, that we do have to make sure that we have these campuses. And with this merger, consolidation, whatever we want to call it, that is going to help out making it a financially viable thing where we can continue to do that and, have a good opportunity for students and get these budgets out of control. And, budgets that took 10 years to get, out of control can't get solved in 1 year. And when I look, I'm optimistic that this is going to work. As a legislator, people come and talk to me all the time about state funding, and I ask a lot of questions. It's always not the most comfortable situation when I keep asking questions, but if I see something as being optimistic and I see something that makes sense, I support it. If I didn't think this was going to work, I would be voting no on this, but I think it's going to work. I think it has it's a very well thought out plan. I think it's important that we do this. And I would urge everybody to vote in the affirmative. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Are there any additional questions?
There's none in the room. And I see no hands on Zoom, Mr. Chair.
Thank you so much. Now I'm going to call the vote for committee members only. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. I would now ask Molly Mercer to present the information in support of the second action item regarding the Edinburgh property disposal. Molly?
Thank you. This action item is to approve a property disposition for 2 residence halls at Edinburgh University, Highlands 7 and 8. In recent years, Edinburgh's residence halls have experienced low occupancy levels, which have created strain on the financials of the auxiliary operations. The university has identified the sale of these properties as part of their financial sustainability planning. These 2 properties have been vacant since spring of 2019, with student housing consolidated in other facilities. Divesting 2 of these properties, would generate proceeds to direct towards paying down the debt, eliminate certain ongoing operational and facility stewardship needs, and leave sufficient housing capacity for anticipated future enrollment. The university has eliminated many operating costs already by vacating the facility, but by selling, it would achieve additional utilities and maintenance savings annually, as well as cost avoidance from not needing to fund future life cycle needs. All in, operating savings and cost avoidance of over $800,000 annually could be achieved by divesting these properties. Universities with excess housing stock face limitations with monetizing these properties, especially in our rural locations. Given these circumstances, Edinburgh University and the state system will continue to seek out all opportunities for auxiliary operations to improve the bottom line, including, as you see here, sale of a facility. Ultimately, this action gives the system still the discretion to dispose of this property if it's deemed in its best interest. The properties themselves are conducive to sale. They sit on a corner edge area of campus that can be separated from the core part of it rather easily. They contain direct access from a public roadway as well as dedicated parking. The sale would include deed restrictions on its use. And currently the university has engaged in some conversations that could result in a retirement community type use or other related function where residents and students could mutually benefit from that arrangement. Because the property is Commonwealth owned, DGS would administer the sale and the university and the system would work jointly on this effort. Back to you, Chair Skinner.
Thank you, Molly. I would now like to move the motion found on page 43, that the Board of Governors approve Edinburgh University's request to proceed with disposal of property and improvements known as Highlands 7 and 8. Do I have a second?
Second.
Are there any questions or discussions?
We'll pause for any hands on Zoom. Senator Schwenk.
I'm not a member of the committee, of course, but I can still ask a question.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So my question is, and I'm assuming this has happened, but have there been consultations with realtors in terms of how to best move forward on this process or how to market the property as well? I will say that I'm frankly pleased to see this action. I recall from the budget hearings, the Senate appropriations budget hearings, discussion about these properties. and the need to, some of these dorms that are not, simply we don't have the students to fill them. And, looking at the future, perhaps they won't be able to be, fully occupied. So I'm curious, as to, what kind of expertise have we engaged in order to help us with this and to do this in the most profitable way for the system, most certainly, and to ensure, because we did get this comment actually in the public session regarding, divesting of these facilities, is looking at the future. Is this the right thing to do? Thank you.
Sure, I can address that if President Pearson wants to add anything, but the staff at Edinburgh has engaged in several exploratory conversations around possible uses, how to market, really trying to position themselves from two fronts, both in terms of maximizing sale proceeds and related to the transaction, as well as finding a fit that is appropriate and beneficial for that location. So this is the first step of unfortunately rather long process. So we will have continued opportunity working with DGS and working through each steps of the process in order to design that optimally.
It is a long process, I know. Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, there are no more hands on Zoom or in the room.
Thank you, Randy. Now I'm going to call the vote for committee members only. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. Our last item pertains to tuition. In addition to setting base tuition for this coming year, our tuition policy also requires the board to set a tentative tuition rate for the following year, estimated for planning purposes for fiscal year 2023-24. I'd like to turn it over to Molly to walk through the considerations for the board surrounding the tuition action item. Molly?
Yes, thank you. I'll outline a few of those and ask the Chancellor to add to this. So regarding tuition, as you recall from last April, when the board froze tuition for the third consecutive year, it was acknowledged that the fiscal realities at our universities would make it very difficult to sustain price freezes into the future, given the rise in costs. These 3 years of price freezes have represented significant foregone revenue in 3 years, reaching an estimated $63 million and even more on a cumulative basis. This revenue loss is difficult for our universities to withstand in light of contractual and inflationary increases. One-time funds have helped fill our COVID gap and have provided some one-time investment opportunities, but they do not replace the base funding generated through tuition growth. However, within the $550 million state appropriation requests is the opportunity to again avoid a tuition increase if such funding is achieved. We've identified this as a high priority within our requests as we recognize how significant it is to our students and their families. However, the timing is such that we do not have this state appropriation determination at this stage. So I'd like to ask the Chancellor to provide a few additional remarks regarding this motion.
Thanks, Molly. Governors, I am not recommending a tuition and fee increase this year because the students we serve are struggling already with the net price of attending our universities, which is too high. And I'll remind us that our universities are the most affordable four-year options in the state of Pennsylvania. I'm not recommending a tuition and fee increase because we're actively engaged in renegotiating our relationship with our owners, the state of Pennsylvania, through the General Assembly. And we have a request in front of the General Assembly, which if honored will, assuming that we continue to operate efficiently, enable us to meet our cost increases without imposing further burden on our students. I'm not recommending a tuition and fee increase because ours is and really ought to be a public system, one that provides affordable pathways to sustaining careers for all Pennsylvanians, not just those few earning in the upper echelons financially, and that public system is enabled in doing its work because of state investment. Having said all that, I seriously hesitate in not recommending a tuition and fee increase because we cannot continue to meet annual cost increases as we have done till now by taking even further efficiency gains. As you know, we've saved over $170 million in the last 2 years through various efficiency measures. Savings that have been more or less spent, eaten up, if you like, by containing price increases for 3 years, as Molly's just said, by increasing the amount of money that we return to student financial aid, now about $100 million a year, and through inflation, which now travels at about 8%. To be fully transparent, we cannot keep doing this. We cannot continue to act as if we were a public system without the level of investments that public systems enjoy. It isn't possible. It is not financially viable, and frankly, it isn't right. So I guess in the end, my recommendation, which is that we freeze tuition and the technology fee, it is an act of faith. Faith in our owners, the General Assembly, faith that we are not alone in this room in our desire to ensure that affordable pathways into and through post-secondary education remain in this Commonwealth. Faith that if necessary, the board can always revisit tuition discussion if it needs to at a later date. Thanks. Turn it back to whoever Randy tells me to turn it back to. Molly.
And I'll turn it back to Chair Skinner for the motion.
Thank you. Given the importance of affordability for our students, I would like to introduce a motion for 2022-23 for another freeze in tuition. I would modify the current draft of the following motion found on page 45 to state that the increase would be 0% for 2022-23, and in turn, a 0% tentative increase for 2023-24 as calculated of the average of the last 3 years. Do I have a second?
Second.
Are there any questions or discussions? I would encourage all board members to engage in the discussion at this time, regardless of committee membership.
And board members, you can choose the raise hand feature if you have a question or comment. Representative Roy.
I'll go first. I thought every hand would go up. No, I just think it's really good. The past 3 years, no tuition increase, I think would be really good if we could do it for another year. A lot of legislators, they like to know that things are being done efficiently. And there's a pretty impressive list. You know, when you look at the system redesign initiative, the West merger, the Northeast merger, the financial sustainability plans, selling off excess property that we did a few minutes ago, the Dixon Center selling that off, union contracts that were fair to the employees and financially affordable for the system. There's just a lot of good things that have happened to help get these costs under control. And I think it's going well over there. I'm just one person out of 203 in the House, but when I talk to my colleagues about the system, the chancellor is always over there talking to legislators. I can't guarantee anything, but I think there's a pretty good chance that there's going to be a good budget year as far as what the system is hoping to receive. And I'm just hoping that we can follow through on this and have another year without a tuition increase. And in the more rural parts of the state, the lower income parts of the state where I come from, just a couple $100 can make a difference between somebody staying in school or somebody dropping out. And so I hope we can do this. Thank you.
Senator Schwenk.
Thank you. Thank you to the committee, and thank you to the administration of the system for giving us the opportunity once again to show our commitment to our students and to the entire Commonwealth, actually, that we understand the situations that they're facing in terms of affording an education, and that we want to be that option. I think we've been demonstrating that not only through tuition, holding the line on tuition, but also by the redesign, trying to recreate a system that really works for everyone in the Commonwealth, or for the most people that we can possibly serve. I wanted to note, however, that I'm not insensitive to the presidents who are in the room. I saw them there somewhere on the Zoom. and, the issues that they're facing in trying to balance their budgets. I get it. And as Representative Roy said, I'm only one member of the legislature, but my sense is that there is a real commitment to try to get to a better place in terms of funding the system. No guarantees, of course, but I do believe that if we had increased tuition, that might have rocked the boat in a lot of ways that would not have been beneficial. So again, recognizing the constraints that this places, I think it's the right place for us to go, most certainly. And I do have a question to ask. So there's another side to this that we don't know about as well, which is the Nellie Bly Scholarship Program. Is the system looking at how, if that does come to pass, how we might be able to implement that in a way that best suits our students, that really gets them to understand that this is a great opportunity for them? Thank you.
Thanks, Senator. Yeah, we are actually modeling out various different ways of implementing the Nellie Bly scholarship. We did, as you know, request $201 million in direct to student aid, and the idea was that we would optimize around students with need, students entering high demand occupations, and community college transfer students because of the efficiency that creates for them and also for the use of state dollars. And we have a bunch of different scenarios, which we're more than happy to share. In fact, we can bring them back to our next workshop or board meeting and walk through them. There would be some critical choices that would need to be made, but we've modeled out a number of scenarios and actually the impacts that they would have, both in terms of cost per student, but also in terms of our ability to graduate students, to improved retention and graduation.
I think that would be a very beneficial discussion and workshop session, certainly. So I would welcome that. And once again, truly appreciate this effort on behalf, not of everybody, faculty, staff, and certainly the presidents and administration and students, in terms of being able to move forward on no tuition increase again this year. Thank you.
Governor Walder, then Secretary Jones. Governor Walder.
I just want to thank the committee for the countless efforts. Yeah, it's on. Cool. So I've mentioned this to many of the board members and the university presidents. I'm actually an out-of-state student. So I came from New Jersey, the lovely state of New Jersey, represent. So I came to Shippensburg for the affordability. My brother went to a larger institution that was probably 40,000 plus. And my parents told me, you're not doing that. And I knew in my head, I did not want to do that. But once I got to SHIP, I realized how much resources a smaller institution has to offer and how much opportunity it has. And as a student, I'm pressing on not rate on the freeze tuition. I feel like it's right now, not in the future. Right now is the best foot forward. And like my dad sends me a text every year of like, oh, they're freezing tuition. This is great. Like things like that. It's very corny for my father to do that, but he does it. But I appreciate all the efforts that have been done for this motion. Thank you.
Secretary Jones, then Representative Briggs.
Thank you. I just wanted to extend my support for the tuition freeze. We're really fortunate that the Commonwealth is in a healthy financial position this year. It hasn't always been the case in recent past. Between our kind of structural surplus and some of the one-time pandemic-related resources that we have, not only do we have an opportunity to freeze tuition because it's the right thing to do, and it fits within our overall strategic goals as a system, but because we can afford to do it. And so I'm excited, hopefully, that the board will take this step to freeze tuition for a fourth consecutive year. I also have a question, though. I see that the motion includes language around kind of a tentative freeze. And I do know that this board retains authority to, kind of revisit past decisions. But I just wanted to, I guess, pose the question about whether, the tentative language doesn't provide students enough certainty around what tuition will be. And so I just wanted to kind of pose the question, because it does kind of suggest that we might change our mind, which might, not be the message that we want to send students as they're making really important decisions about where they want to go next year. So I'll stop there.
I can start with a response, but I'm going to tag team with Molly. So what you're seeing is, and so it is up to the board how we want to represent this. What you're seeing is an artifact of our policy, which says that the board will in April set the tuition for the coming year, and based on the average of the last 3 years, identify a tuition rate for the subsequent year. So that's what the policy sort of suggests that we do. How we word it, of course, is a matter for discussion. Molly, did I get that wrong?
That's correct. The only other thing I would just emphasize is it's a mathematical calculation per the policy, and we do that just to provide some planning window. But it always is revisited. It's always reevaluated. So really, we're following the policy by just extending 23-24's tentative rate at the average of the last 3, and it always gives us the right to revisit that, and we are required to.
Thank you.
We have Representative Briggs, then Governor Mazur.
Great. Thank you very much, Randy. I want to thank the Chancellor for this recommendation of a zero tuition increase. I could not support anything that increased the burden on our students. The last couple of years have been difficult for the universities to make ends meet, but it's not the students' fault. It's the legislature's challenge to come up with the votes to support a responsible funding increase. I do take seriously the comments from one of the student during the public comment that we should be doing everything we can to decrease the tuition costs. And I know he calls on us to do better, and that's what I think we all are trying to do. It's not a year to even consider an increase. And we are, as the Secretary said, in a better fiscal position from the Commonwealth. But we've had an opportunity since the last, since the Great Recession to correct our path. We've made some small incremental steps in the right direction recently, but we need to do everything we can to advocate and get the leaders and get the legislators to approve the request that we have the opportunity to do. I share Representative Roy's optimism. I'm only one vote, but when we are, we do well when we're in crisis, and sometimes the crisis is what we create ourselves. So I think by underfunding the system for years, for really putting the universities in a difficult position, the steps we've made to satisfy some of these requests, I hope we're not just keep moving the goalposts, but I think this is the year that we can correct some of these issues. But I do have a question, and it's hard not being in the room, but to some of the university presidents, if they could give examples to me, what would happen if the legislature doesn't enact a reasonable budget increase? What types of steps have been made already, and what type of steps would you envision having to make if we keep it at zero tuition with no increase? That's really what from the general fund. What would that look like for the institutions, if you don't mind sharing?
President Barry has his mic on.
Thank you for asking. I'll start with a very Slippery Rock specific example. In the coming year, we have $4 million in contractual obligations that this board voted in. Slippery Rock has put in a proposal for a 2% increase, which I've asked the chancellor to hold on, giving the decision today and let the legislature do its work. If we got that 2% increase, that would be $1.5 million approximately to our bottom line. So that alone would not even fulfill the contractual obligations that we've been committed to. That's the first part. The second part is, in my tenure at Slippery Rock, we've increased student financial aid 7 figures, massive investment, not quite what you've heard about Kutztown, but in that path. We would have to turn around on that. So in some ways, it's nice to be able to say there's no tuition increase, but actually the cost to students will go up, particularly the most needy students, because they won't get the financial aid. The sticker price is not what needy students pay. It's the net price, and that will shrink. I've also presented to this body the work that we've done to bolster our students in terms of their career path, in terms of their mental health security. Those are all things that we will have to seriously consider. You heard about our life design program in a workshop. We would consider cutting that because while it's important to us, it isn't the core of delivering our curriculum. So our schools will not be what they are today, and the opportunities will disappear. And just to make the point, at Slippery Rock, 2% would be $183 for the year. We're not talking about a draconian change.
Thank you, President Barry. President Hawkinson has his hand.
Yes, thank you, Randy. So Kutztown, in recent years, we cut our workforce by 22 to 23%. We've cut operating budgets by over 30%. We've made other major cuts, resulting in millions of savings. At the same time, that, as you heard yesterday in my presentation, we're pumping millions of dollars into institutional financial aid to support our students. And all those wraparound services I referred to all require major investment of resources by the university. We just do not have the resources to be able to do all these things. We're at the point where there's nothing else really left to cut. And if you want us to be able to continue to provide institutional financial aid and all these wraparound services, you just have to give us more resources to do it.
Thank you, Representative Briggs. Next, Governor Mazur.
Can I just follow up? I wasn't sure if there was anyone else. I appreciate those views. I agree with you. You need more resources. I'm not going to be able to vote to increase any tuition if there ever is a recommendation in the next year or two until the state steps up. So I hope and I encourage all the presidents to continue talking to their legislators to make sure that they know the consequences of lack of action this June. Thank you. Thank you, Randy.
Thank you. Governor Mazur, then Secretary Garcia.
Thank you. I do fully support the freeze in tuition again. I think it's been one of the better decisions we've made over the last few years. But, you know, we were exposed earlier to the constant drumbeat that the system is just too expensive. I don't think there's anything left to be done to trim efficiencies or squeeze more out of the system. There's nothing left. I've been on this board for 8 or 9 years now, and we've done everything humanly possible. The presidents have done more than anyone could ever ask. So sadly, that means it will fall to the legislature, and the legislature, hopefully, along with the administration, will figure out a way to get the funds that we are asking for. I'll say this: what we're asking for is not what we need. It's less than we need by a strong factor. But it is more than we have, and it will now enable us to continue to move forward. I'm a big fan of taking the victory you can get versus holding your breath waiting for the victory you cannot get. So anything we can do to support the legislature and the administration in honoring the funding request as is, we will do. And for those voices that believe the system is still too expensive, I suggest they don't call us, call Harrisburg, because we're not in charge. Thank you.
Secretary Garcia.
Keep getting, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Keep getting promoted here. I'm not asking for one. I love this job and, you know, no complaints from me. So I'm gonna read to you some stats on who today's post-secondary learners are. And I'd also like you to entertain at the same time that many of the students who we could be enrolling are also represented by this data. And we have to think about that. Who are we enrolling, and who are enrolling beyond these students that are enrolling have got the memo that a post-secondary credential is needed to, obtain family-sustaining wages and to just be able to get by in today's economy. And these are the ones who are coming to our shores. Almost 4 in 10 are adult learners that are older than age 25. This is national data, but we have to acclimate our thinking to the fact that these are Pennsylvanians as well. 4 in 10 are enrolled part-time. Over a third are first-generation students. 344,000 veterans of post 9/11 GI Bill veterans are taking advantage of the benefits that accrue to them. However, the Veterans Administration projects that 5 million post 9/11 veterans exist. So now let's look at how almost a third of today's students are low-income students at or below the federal poverty level. Almost half, 49% of all of these students are financially independent, which means that when they fill out their FAFSA, they are not putting their parents' income on that form. More than 6 out of 10 are working. Almost a quarter are parenting students. All of this points to the fact that there's a lot of financial responsibility resting on students' shoulders. And, I not only support the tuition and fee freeze, I have to also advocate here, as Secretary Jones has advocated, for the investment in Nellie Bly as our students need this. Not only do they need the investment in the state system to, sustain the incredible ability to pay for tuition and fees, these students also need to have their other costs of attendance met. And that is what Nellie Bly would enable them to do. Now, in Nellie Bly, we are prioritizing healthcare, education, and public service occupations. And because the state system universities began as our normal universities, educating future teachers and future educators, we are in the midst of a teacher and educator crisis. And I would be remiss if I did not state how important it is to also look at changing the public school code and the minimum salary of a teacher that it currently stands at $18,500. And that law was passed in 1987. So I'll end my comment there, but many of these students who are braving the post-secondary landscape to come to our campuses, many other potential students are not taking those brave steps because they do not see how they're going to be able to afford the post-secondary education they increasingly need in order to just be good Pennsylvanians and engaging at the fullest level that our society requires. Thanks.
And Chair Shapiro, I think, is our last hand.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much. This conversation has been really terrific, robust, informed, caring, focused on our highest priority, our students, and also mindful of the real needs, of our university. So I appreciate very much what the president said as well. This is this is difficult. It's complicated. I fully support the tuition freeze. Again, like Dan said, and others, I believe that it is our faith in our legislature, in the governor and the Commonwealth, that the investment is understood to be a critically important one, and that it will happen. And on that basis, I urge us to pass this motion, even understanding, what the realities are. I very much appreciate. I just want to really single out our legislators who sit on this board for coming together, for not being ideological or different political parties, and really speaking together in support of the system, in support of all that we've done, and particularly in support of our students. I think I've said this before, and I think this is one of the reasons, we received the Nason Award from the Association of Governing Boards. This board is really able to do it in a way that I think is remarkable. And it's a demonstration once again of how far we've come in our own work and evolved as a board. So, I just had to throw that out there too. And thank you all so much for this discussion, and to again reiterate that I have full faith that we are moving forward, and I strongly support the tuition recommendation to the board for action.
Mr. Chairman, back to you.
Are there any additional questions or discussion at this time? Thank you all for your questions and comments. Now I'm going to call the vote for committee members only. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. This concludes the work of the University Success Committee. Thank you.
Okay. Very good. All right, we are now back in full board mode, and we'll consider ratification of the committee's actions in one motion unless any board member prefers that we separate them out. So let me go through what those would be. They would be item 10A, the student trustee appointments, item 11A, the loan and loan transfer, item 11B, the property sale, and item 11C, the tuition and technology fee action. First, does any member want to separate out any of these for a vote? Please raise your hand, or otherwise let Randy know.
Just give a pause to see if anyone has any board members have any raised hands. There are no hands raised in the room or on the Zoom.
Okay, very good. Then can I have a motion that the Board of Governors approves items 10A, 11A, 11B, and 11C as recommended by their respective committees?
So moved.
Second.
Second, thank you. Is there any further discussion?
No hands in the room or on Zoom, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you, Randy. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
If there are there any opposed?
No hands in the room or on Zoom.
All right, then all of these actions carry. Thank you very much. All right, before we close out, for the record, I want to report that the board met in executive session yesterday from noon until 1 p.m. to discuss legal and personnel issues. Let me ask if there are any other matters to come before the board today.
And no hands in the room or on Zoom.
Okay, well, hearing none, let me thank you all again so very much for your engagement, your thoughtfulness, your commitment, your intelligence. And hearing no other matters to come before the board, this meeting is adjourned.